happens. So I'm going to be juggling. Hopefully I can see this on the YouTube channel and catch questions.
I think we're streaming now.
Yeah, it looks like it says we are right now. So we'll see what happens. So I'm going to be juggling. Hopefully I can see this on the YouTube channel and catch questions.
I think we're streaming now.
We are. Yeah, it looks like it says we are. So I got to mute something here real quick. So are you good with that? Can you hear everything still?
Yes, I'm good.
Okay. I had to mute the actual channel itself because it was throwing, it was talking to me at the same time as I'm talking with the delay, and it's like, oh, I can't do that. My brain doesn't work like that. So, yeah, we know how my brain works, right? So I'm going to try to figure out a way to grab both of these and see if I can see them both at one time here real quick as we're waiting for a few people to join. I figure that'll be the best. Again, I'm just learning how to do some of this because I'm not the brightest person in the world when it comes to technology sometimes.
I've struggled with this at our board meetings too, so I completely understand.
So make this one smaller because I don't need to see myself so much. And you are undercover, so we can go from there. And I'm sure my trusty assistant Dana is probably watching from somewhere. She is not at my house. I'm working from the house today. And I'm sure if I'm doing something wrong, she will send me a message on one of my phones and remind me to, hey, get this thing working right, you know. So I probably didn't even set it up right as a coffee with the mayor, August coffee with the mayor on the little tag when I made it go live either, but that's okay. We'll work all that out. Just to let everybody know, it's a 9:02. Hopefully we'll have a few people on in a few minutes. Looks like we got about 7 so far. So that's good. And there is, remember folks, there is a little bit of a delay from where we're talking. So if you have questions and they pop up, go ahead and add it to the comments section on YouTube and we'll go from there. We got 6 people watching now. It's going to be bouncing back and forth, and that's okay. Even if there's 2 people watching, I'm fine with that. People can watch it later. Just to give an update on a couple of things. First, I want to welcome Dr. Walters from the Bryant School District. She's our special guest, and we'll get with her in just a little bit and talk about some really the plans for the school and everything else, and how much work has gone into making this school year actually happen through everything from the state on down, really, because I mean, it has been a lot of work for the school, I know, based on our talks throughout the summer and even last spring when the school shut down. One thing I do want to bring up is the census again, because, hey, it's still census season. We have until, I think it's October to get all the census data in. Remember, people will be coming by your house if you don't go online and do the census. I got online this morning to check our numbers, and it looks like Bryant has a response rate right now of 62%, which is not bad. Since we're talking schools today, that would be a passing grade, but it's not a very good passing grade. It'd be better if it was about an 80% or a 90%, then we could be in the top of the class. And actually in the top of the state. There are some cities in Arkansas right now that have probably 80% response rate online, which is phenomenal. Some have lower than that. The state overall average is 57.6% on the response online. So we're doing better than the state average, which is always nice. But the sad part of this is I checked Benton's numbers as well, and their response rate is 66.1%. So they are ahead of us, Bryant. I don't know if you like that or not. We can make this a friendly competition. We talked about it a long time ago, me and Tom did. But, you know, we never got that going. So, but let's do this. Why not? So I'm going to throw it out there, Tom. If you happen to be watching, which you may or may not be, and that's okay. we're going to come after you at this. We're going to try to beat this 66.1% because as we continue to respond, of course, they continue to respond. So we need to really kick it up, Bryant. Let's go with this. Also wanted to give a couple of updates for some things that are happening today. Remember the farmers market's happening today. So if you get a chance, if you're hungry and you can get out and about and you want some good vegetables and watermelon and things like that, feel free to come down to the Midtown, to the Bryant Farmers Market. It's here on Saturdays from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. I will not be there today. As I said, I am working from home today, and I'll get into a little bit of why I'm doing that right now. My trusty assistant, Dana, is not with me. So hopefully this is working out okay and we survive all this because I'm not always the best technological person on things like this. So let's just enjoy and have what we have. Lee Wood Thomas lives over in the Carywood, Debswood area. He's an avid disc golfer. He's been posting on Facebook, and I noticed it this morning that he's doing a clinic. It starts at 10 o'clock. So if you're in the Debswood area and you are interested in disc golf, he said, bring some comfortable shoes, bring a drink, and come on over and he'll show you what it's like to play disc golf. There's a big open area that the city owns that he's going to set up a few temporary baskets in for disc golf. And he's going to show y'all how to do that. So if y'all are interested in that, you should go out there and check that out about 10 o'clock. But remember, if you're in groups, if you get close, try to stay socially distant. And if you can't, make sure you're wearing your mask and stuff because we want to deal with this COVID. A couple of project updates, as you may have saw on the council meeting from earlier this week. The city council has approved, got to look at my notes to make sure I get it all right, using some of the remaining A&P funds that we have for a couple of parks projects. One of those is a bathroom and a playground at Ashley Park, which will be great for that area and Ashley Park. So when people go to play baseball there, their siblings, once the playground's built, they'll have a place to play. So that'll be kind of fun. In addition, there's a bathroom and pavilion that's going to be built at Alcoa 40 Park as part of the upgrades there, which includes a trail that's going to go through that, which will connect to the Bryant, which will actually be part of the Bryant Parkway Trail and continue on down to the south side of the city. And previously, in a previous council meeting, they approved the pavilion at Bishop Park and some electric hookups for food trucks and RV parking at Bishop Park. So we're doing some really good things with some money we have from A&P funds, and that is part of what those funds have been used for in the past, and that's what they're designated for. They can't just be used for anything. They were also used to assist the school district with the state tournament this year. There was some money that has been allocated for the air show that we're going to have this year, but unfortunately because of COVID, it got postponed. And so we're just working our way through that, and it's all going to be okay. Now that brings me, and like I say, in a few minutes, we'll get to Dr. Walters, but that brings me to what I need to mention, a couple of things with regard to COVID. I am working from home right now, like I said, so Dana, my assistant, is not here helping me, which makes that a little bit harder, but that's okay. But the reason I am is because COVID has struck the Scott household. My wife and children have tested positive for COVID. So as a precaution, we are staying inside. We're doing what we're required to do for socially distancing. I am still in constant contact with my department heads and everybody else in the city via email, phone, video chat, Zoom meetings, you name it, I'm in contact with them. So we're working through that. So the city's in good hands still. I have been tested for the COVID virus, but I do not have my test results back yet. So depending on how those test results come back to how long this will be and stuff, because we have to follow the guidelines. And that brings us to basically everything that I've got so far. And now I would like to say, again, from earlier, welcome Dr. Walters. It's good to have you here. I know it's been a busy last spring through summer, and it's going to be even crazier through the fall with all this, with all the planning and stuff y'all have been doing. So if you don't mind, can you give us a little update on how y'all have managed to plan through the summer for this and how things have changed and evolved through the summer for this?
Sure. So, we actually started, I think, planning, I would say in early May. Until school got out last spring, there were issues and things that we needed to take care of to finish out that school year. But by mid-May, we were already working on what is this fall going to look like. And we started on curriculum work because we knew we were going to have virtual options and on-site options if it was available, and we knew that the virtual option would be there. And there's not a lot of differences, but there are some tweaks in how teachers teach virtual and how they teach in person. So we began that work because there were a lot of questions still unanswered about, what things were going to look like on site. So we began there, and then in June, we received some more information from the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, which we call DESE. And from that information, we began working on our plans. So for Bryant, we have the two options for virtual. Students can learn from home, and then blended learning, which is going to be on-site learning. And it's kind of evolved over the summer. We put out a survey on June 22nd and gave parents until July 5th to sign up for options. And then probably a week after that is when we started seeing our record numbers in our state. I believe it was about a week after that that we hit the 1,000 mark. And so we released that survey again in case there were some parents that had, changed their mind. And then the third iteration of this was a week ago Thursday, when our school board voted on a resolution to require masks for all of our students pre-K through 12 and our staff. Since that was a change in what we had put out, the information we put out to parents, earlier it was fourth grade and up, but with the changes in numbers and also some guidance from the Department of Health and the CDC, they recommended in school settings that, everyone wear a mask that can. So we opened up our survey for the third time, and we have been working feverishly this week. Our principals are working on schedules, master schedules. We're working on class lists for virtual students and blended students, the safety plans for, making sure we can social distance during lunches and things like that, not having too many students in the lunchroom. So that's kind of where we're at right now.
Yeah, I remember some of that because actually, you people may or may not know, my wife actually works for the school district still. Of course, I used to before I became mayor. And so I have a good idea of what it's like for some of the issues you've been facing. Now, as a result of all this, have you had some problems with, I don't know exactly how to say this, because, this virus, this pandemic has been constantly evolving with changing, basically partially with changing requirements for quarantine. I saw yesterday that the CDC has modified those somewhat, saying if you've actually tested positive, you don't necessarily have to stay quarantined for quite as long as if you tested negative, or if, you've had an exposure and you've not tested at all. Of course, that's because of that latency period of being potentially asymptomatic, I think. So what has that, and you alluded to this, I think, a little bit, but how much difficulty has that caused y'all with regard to this?
Well, we have had some cases this summer. Our student athletes were able to begin in June on conditioning, weightlifting. There were restrictions. It's not like we were able just to have normal practices, but they were able to be on campus. And so we have dealt with a few of those cases where we would have a student test positive, and we've worked with the Department of Health, reached out to them, and followed their guidance. It does change a little bit, and I don't know that that's a bad thing. I think as they get new information, I know we're learning a lot about this.
Absolutely.
Um, the important thing is that we are getting that information so that we're all on the same page, because we want to make sure that we're telling our students, our staff, the correct information. And I think that's been an issue with the Department of Health. I know they are so overwhelmed. They haven't had enough staff and trying to get everyone trained. But I think that has gotten better. And it has been a little bit difficult for us as, not being medical personnel, trying to go through all of the what ifs and what does this look like. We did have a situation a few weeks ago where two employees, one tested positive, and the close contact of that employee went and got tested, was negative. He did the blood test, was told that he had the antibodies. He had had it before and didn't know it, but he was going to have to quarantine for 14 days. And the employee who tested positive but was asymptomatic could come back before the other person.
Right.
So,
Right. Yeah.
things like that where we scratch our head a little bit and go, oh, okay. But so I'm not saying that we understand it all, but like I said, we're trying to follow, the guidance that we're given on that.
I understand that. Like I said, with it hitting our household like it has, I've become more familiar with that guidance, and that's actually helped me. And of course, in the city, we've implemented some plans throughout the summer and last spring when this all started, and we've been working through that. Especially in City Hall, we've been maintaining for the last probably 3 weeks, where if you're out in a public area in the City Hall, if you're not in your office, you have to wear a mask. Even if you're going from one office to another, if you're going from the office to the bathroom, or you're coming in the building. And of course, we've limited visitors as well. And we've done that contact tracing element of that with visitors when we log them in when they're here during that time frame. Are y'all going to have to do that at schools? How are y'all going to work with that, with contact tracing and stuff like that?
So we are encouraging all of our principals, to the extent possible, that we keep our kids in the same cohort. So that's, pretty easy to do at the elementary level because
Right.
they're pretty much in the same class all day. Our pull-out classes for elementary, instead of those kids leaving the room and going to the music teacher's room, the music teacher is going to come to their room. So we have a good process for that. Even at recess, like all of the first grade classes go at one time, but we're going to have one class play in this zone so that we can keep the classes separated out. Because the contact tracing piece of it, what we've, figured out from this is that if the kids, the more they intermingle, the more it makes this process of trying to contact trace to figure out. So, who do we need to contact that needs to quarantine, to, encourage them to get tested. So like I said, that's easy at the elementary level. I think at the middle school and junior high, they're trying to keep their kids in teams. They change classes, but like they're going to try to keep this same group of kids. They're going to go together from English to math to social studies to science. Where it gets a little bit more difficult at junior high is that there are some electives that not all kids take. And so we're going to do it as much as possible, but we also don't want to disallow students to take classes that are in their interest. In the high school, where it is most difficult because we do have so many elective classes, and you can't keep the kids together in cohorts like that at the high school level. So we're just trying to minimize, um, you know, some of the transitions. We're looking at traffic patterns. We're looking at, one way into the building here. And you know what it's like during class change at the high school. You're very familiar. So
Yes,
just
ma'am.
looking at ways that we can mitigate that process. Because
Yeah.
we are going to have seating charts, and when we get that notification that we have a student that's tested positive, we are, going to have to go through that process, and we're probably going to have to add some staff to help with this contact tracing, because it, it's going to be a lot of time. I'll put it
Yeah,
that.
I can imagine. And I think is the state providing some additional funding for people that you're going to have to hire for this contact tracing element, or will that have to come out of your normal budget?
Well, it will have to come out of our normal budget. We received some CARES Act funding.
Right.
The bad thing about the CARES Act funding, the federal government tried to get that out quickly. And so I think the intent was they wanted to use a formula they already had, but they used the Title I formula, which is based on your free and reduced students instead of number of students.
Gotcha.
So for us, we received about $700,000. That sounds like a lot of money, but for 9,300 students, it's not, when
No.
the PPE that we've had to purchase. So that our CARES Act funds is probably not going to cover our PPE needs. So I'm hearing that there may be some more money coming from the federal government. I'm hearing that, the state is looking at, how can they help us? So not sure about that, but regardless, I think we're going to have to try to look at it and make it work.
Yeah, I understand that. Well, in the city, that first round of CARES Act money, none of that really has been designated for city. There has been maybe some on the state level that's been set aside for cities for issues relating to this, because some cities have lost an extreme amount of revenue while some have not. But in addition, there are a lot of extra expenses, like you say, for PPE and things like that, that the cities have been having to spend. So it's been real difficult for some cities to do that. Luckily in Bryant, we've not seen an impact on our sales tax dollars. And there's probably a couple of reasons for that, but since we're talking about schools, we don't need to talk about that here. I will want to throw out just real quick that if you're watching and you have a question for Dr. Walters or myself, feel free to put it in the comment section. I can see that over here on my iPad. So if you throw a question out there, I can work it. Oh, look, here's some already. I was in the wrong spot in a live chat. Let's see. Leewood said, thanks for the plug. Miss Ramsey's asking, will classes be cleaned in between class change, or even is this possible?
So we have rearranged our custodial staff as far as their schedules, so that we have more staff that's there during the daytime to help with the disinfecting. We've also purchased the backpack electromagnetic sprayers that allow you to disinfect large spaces in a short amount of time.
Right.
At the
Yeah, we actually use some of those in the city as well for our courts and things like that. So
yes, they're wonderful. In between classes, like at the secondary level, it's going to be more about disinfecting the desk, and teachers will disinfect the high touch points like the doorknobs and things like that often.
yeah.
With that sprayer, the students can't be in the room, and you need a little bit of time, like 10 or 15 minutes, to let it sit. We have concerns with kids with asthma and things like that, that we don't want to have those issues as well.
Right.
So that deep cleaning can't happen in between classes, but if they're using a computer, the desk or whatever, that will get disinfected in between each class.
Right. And I'm sure the students will have access in the classroom. If it is like most times when I was a teacher, that they'll have access in the classrooms, there'll be wipes or something available for computers. So if a student wants to, they can grab a cleaning wipe and clean that laptop before they get involved with it, which would be nice for them.
Yeah, we've got that. Each teacher will have the disinfectant spray bottle and paper towels. We actually are not going to be able to get wipes, because wipes are harder to find than diamonds at Murfreesboro right now. So if you can find them, we can't afford them. So
I got you.
They will have the spray and the paper towels to wipe down what they need.
And of course, I know earlier before we got online, let's see, somebody goes, Mr. Moorhead, or Brian Moorhead goes, my hope is that teachers will be able to focus on teaching and not be scared to death that a student isn't wearing a mask properly. There are too many distractions in the classroom already. And he acknowledges that teachers have their hands full, and I acknowledge that, and you acknowledge that. and all the teachers acknowledge that. But unfortunately, this is the hand we've been dealt. So we're going to have to do with what we can and do the best we can on this. I think Sue Smith goes, will the funds allocated for internet services by Governor Hutchinson to help Bryant students, will hotspots be available for virtual students?
So we actually have, through the Governor Hutchinson's initiative, Bryant is going to receive 275 hotspots. So the students that chose virtual, I'm not saying no, we're not going to give those to those students, but right now, since that was a choice, we've got to look to see how many that we have. A concern that we have is that if we have to pivot and we do have to shut down and everyone is forced to go virtual, the issue that we had in the spring, we spent hours and hours trying to get hotspots, and you couldn't get them. We finally got 500. And so we want to be careful that we don't give all those out to students that chose virtual right now. And then if we pivot and everybody's forced to be at home and virtual,
Right.
then we don't have hotspots.
Right. Yeah. I do know also last spring, if I remember right, because talking to your IT guy, we had some discussions about some things that y'all were able to set up a couple of Wi-Fi areas. It's not ideal, but to where teachers or not, well, I guess teachers could do it too, but students, if needed, they could actually go to the parking lot or something at the school and log in through there like normal and
Yes.
get at least download their information, go home and do their work, and then come back and upload it if they needed to.
Yes, we actually had probably, I would say, 5 or 6 areas that we did that. And even like on Steel Bridge Road, which is, a little bit out in the country, we put one up at a church there so that those people didn't have to drive in so far to come to town.
Yeah, that's good. That's a great idea. I know that as far as the city works with regard to that, if there's anything you need, or if there's an area in the city that we can assist with for something like that, just let us know and we'll work through that process without any trouble, because it's important. Leewood Thomas goes, has asking, are Chromebooks going to be reissued to students going the virtual route?
Yes, any student that needs a Chromebook will be able to have one checked out to them.
Good deal. That's good. I know before we went live, we were talking about some stuff, and you said you've got a workshop happening. I think you said Tuesday or Wednesday or sometime this week coming up. I can't remember the exact day, but you're going to present something to the school board with regard to the Ready for Learning plan, I believe is what it's called.
Yes.
Can you talk about that and what that document is and how it may potentially evolve through this process?
Sure. So our board work session is actually Monday night, and we are going to review our Ready for Learning plan with the board. And the Ready for Learning plan is a requirement that all districts have from the state. We have to have those on our website by September 1. We our plan is that after we review it with our board Monday night, even though they haven't approved it, we're going to publish it to everyone as a draft. It has all of the different pieces of what school's going to look like, from curriculum, from virtual to blended, what is that day going to look like, to the safety procedures, extracurricular activities, where lunch is going to look like, pick up and drop off. It covers pretty much everything, and it's broken out by elementary and secondary because their issues are a lot of times very different. So I hope that we're able Monday night to, it will be Tuesday morning at the latest, that we can send that out for everyone to look at. As we get new guidance from the Department of Health or from DESE, we'll have to update that document. But our plan is that on August 20th, we'll ask our board to approve it, and it'll be posted as the final. But again, as we get new guidance, it will change.
Yeah, final, subject to change.
Yes. The Department of Health, one of the things we were talking about, Mayor, is the Department of Health has actually provided us a document with the levels of how we're going to deal with the cases, and it's like a mild, moderate, and critical are the three levels, and it gives us some guidance on, things that we need to think about, what we may need to do. If we have a kindergarten teacher that tests positive and there are 8 close contacts in that room, that may be a situation where we say to that classroom of kids, you guys are going to go virtual for 2 weeks. Um,
Gotcha.
I have the autonomy to, to close down a classroom or a building, but as far as the district, that is something that the Department of Health will give us guidance on. We do not have the local autonomy to close down the district. But that document, I think, is helpful to schools. There's also a flow chart, a little diagram that kind of tells us, what to do to go through the steps. And that is, we're going to put that on our website so parents can see that. They see what we see. And I think that might help them to understand, the what ifs everybody talks about. What if there's a positive case in my kid's class?
Absolutely. I think that's a great idea to put it out there for people to see. Unfortunately, anytime you put a document out like that, somebody's going to look at it and say, but what about this? And what about this? And what about this? We know if you did a document to cover every possible scenario, it would be so thick, nobody could ever read it. So there's always going to be some adjustments and changes, I think, with regard to that. So, but it's a great start, and I think that's good. And honestly, I'll probably read it and use some of that guidance myself for the city. So I don't think that's a problem at all. Got a couple more questions up here. Let's see here. I've got that one. Somebody, Andy Slater goes, if we selected virtual learning and signed up for band earlier in the year before COVID, will band be virtual now, or will we have the option to select a new elective?
So that is one of those questions that I can't give you a definitive answer. We are told that this week, the band guidance is supposed to come out from the Department of Health. So
Gotcha.
some of the things that we're hearing is that band is not going to be able to play instruments inside at all. You're going to have to be outside. Certain instruments will have to be 12 feet apart. Others can be 6 feet apart. So these are things that I've heard on Zooms, but we don't have in writing yet.
Right.
So looking for that written guidance before we can make decisions. But if we're not going to be able to do band the normal way, and students want to sign up for a different elective, they can certainly do that.
Okay, well, that's good to hear. Moving on, a gentleman by the name of R.M. Green goes, my 10th grader, who is the blended schedule, is asking how will the high school class breakouts for blended, how are they going to work? I'm not exactly sure what he's talking about there, but.
So if you're a high school blended student, you're going to be able to have your normal schedule. Classrooms may look a little different. We're taking out all non-essential furniture so we can socially, distance students as far as we can. Transition time between classes may look different, but the classes that they signed up for pre-COVID, all of that, we hope to stay the same. We want to give our students as much of a normal education experience as we can.
Yeah. Normalcy is so important in a situation like this. I mean, it can't be overstated. The closer we can be to what we've known as normal in our lives is always better. And of course, hopefully everybody understands that you can't always have that, and it won't always be. I know sometimes people call this the new normal, but I just like to call it the abnormal myself. But that's just me. Carrie Wallace is asking, when will we be having open houses and virtual students able to pick up schedules, Chromebooks, etc.?
So each building, their schedule may be a little bit different. So that will be communicated at the building level. All of our open houses will be virtual. We received guidance from DESE this past week. They do not want us to have, large groups coming into the buildings. They think it could cause problems for starting school as far as, increasing our cases and things like that. So our folks at the building level, I heard some of their plans yesterday. We had a admin institute with all the principals, assistant principals, and directors in the whole district. And they told some of their plans for some of the virtual open houses that they're going to do. And they've got some great plans. So I look for them to, I don't know if it'll be this week, but next week, I think you'll get more information about that. And also as far as schedules, keep in mind that the survey did not close until this past Monday. So they didn't have their numbers. We didn't have those numbers of who's going to be virtual and who's going to be blended. They didn't get to start working on that until Tuesday.
Yeah.
So I promise you they're working very hard, but they may need another week to get those final classes finished.
And I know they're working hard because I remember on a regular year when I was a school teacher, they worked so hard on getting the schedules and balancing things. And even after the school year started, there was always work relating to it as well. So I can only imagine throwing this virtual aspect into it, how that has put a kink in things. So I haven't seen any questions in the last few minutes, but feel free to ask any questions if you want to, folks. One thing I do know is this past Friday on the governor's update that he does just about every day, he talked about athletics and the fall season, saying basically we're going to be playing football, volleyball, and cheer. And of course, you're talking about band directives coming out, because I know, which is kind of nice to get that information too this week, because several people have asked me, I said, well, it doesn't make sense. If you can play football, why can't you have band or play band? So what are your thoughts on the athletics, and how's Bryant doing with regard to that? Do you think we'll be able to have the Salt Bowl?
So I'm too afraid to answer that question at this time. I hope that we get to have Salt Bowl. I don't know if we do get to have the Salt Bowl. I don't believe it will look like it normally does. The players may get to play, but I don't think we'll have 34,000 stands, fans in the stands.
Yeah.
I'm very anxious. The governor talked yesterday about this committee that he's appointed. I think there are a couple of school superintendents, there are doctors. I think that they're going to look at the health issues, I will say, of starting sports, and I believe that they'll also look at the impact that has on starting school. I believe it's Dr. Delahaye, is how you say her name, that works for the Department of Health. She spoke one day this week about how, these things are important, our sports and our extracurricular. There are some students that's such a big part of their lives, but we also have to think about how those things could impact the start of school. So I believe the people that the governor has put on that committee understand that. And I think that they'll come out with, appropriate guidance for us so we can move forward or slow things down. I can tell you from looking at the revenue that the school Bryant and Benton receives from Salt Bowl, I can assure you no one wants the Salt Bowl to happen more than myself and Dr. Skelton at Benton.
Well, me too.
Yes, it pays for a lot of our athletics for all of our teams.
Right.
So from that aspect, we would like it to go on. And I don't care to tell you that one of the things that's been discussed at Salt Bowl meetings is, if the kids are allowed to play, we've talked about doing a pay-per-view Salt Bowl this year.
Yeah.
If we have everyone there, we could all at least watch it, from home on TV. So,
which I'd be willing to do that myself if need be.
Yeah.
So, I mean, because I'd really honestly like to see Bryant beat Benton again. I'm going to be real about that.
I would too.
I mean, nothing against Benton. I mean, we're good friends, me and Mayor Farmer, but if we get to have the Salt Bowl, we might have to have some friendly wager this time. I don't know what that would be, and I haven't mentioned this to him yet, but so maybe I shouldn't have. Carrie Wallace is asking an additional question, says, has the district determined or had any discussions on how the fan perspective of sports will look? Which I think we kind of just answered a little bit. We're just really not sure yet, it seems like, so.
And I think we're kind of, waiting to see what guidance comes out. I'm not saying that we wouldn't go above what guidance that they give, but I also don't want to put the cart in front of the horse to, I'd like to see what guidance they put out before we decide if, we're going to go above that or anything.
Yeah, and that makes perfect sense. I mean, that's what I've done as mayor for the city with regard to certain things through this whole pandemic, is basically, people ask me, well, you're going to do this, you're going to do this. I said, well, no, not yet. I don't see a need for that yet. And I'm waiting for some additional information and guidance from the state level on what they're going to do so I could respond. So it only makes sense to do that, because inevitably, if you didn't do that and you did something, you'd have to backtrack on that. And then that would just make some people irritated as well. So.
Well, and from what the comments I heard yesterday, I think that this group will take that into consideration, not just the players playing, but it sounded like they were also going to look at, so what will it look like for spectators, in the
Yeah.
stand?
Right. Miss Ramsey has asked, what is DESE? You mentioned DESE earlier. So what is DESE? She doesn't know what that means.
DESE is the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. We used to call it just the Department of Education. They changed their name. It's such a long title that we shorten it, and I apologize. We educators have a lot of acronyms. So
that's okay. Everybody else does too. It's like Arkansas Department of Environmental Quality is no longer ADEQ. Don't even remember what their new name is now. It's environment and something else. I don't know. So I get it. The state seems to like to change their name periodically. I guess it's trying to reinvent. I don't know. I can't think of any other questions I have with regard to anything on the schools for this fall. And I know y'all have been working real hard, and I don't want to take away from your entire Saturday morning, because if you're like me, there's stuff that you want to do. I mean, of course, I have stuff I want to do that I can't do, but that's okay. I'll just self-quarantine around my house and be good. I do have some wood to move, so that's okay. Is there any last things you would like to say and bring out and talk about before we kind of sign off on this?
I would like to thank all of our parents that have been so patient. I know that they have struggled with not being able to have all of their questions answered. I've struggled with that myself. There's still information that we're looking for. I appreciate the patience, the understanding that parents have had with us. This is going to be a little bit different for everyone this year. I told a group yesterday that, we're building this plane in the air, but we're going to get it landed one day soon. And, even though there are some unanswered questions, I can tell you that our team has put so much work, so much thought, into keeping everyone's kids safe. But the equally important issue is that our kids have lost 9 weeks of learning from last spring. And we've got to make sure, whether they're a virtual student or whether they're a blended, student on site, that we make sure that we're doing everything we can to keep these kids ready and not let them get behind. Because I think that's something that's an even bigger tragedy, is for them to, in 3 or 4 years, not be able to do what they want to do because they did not have the preparation that they needed when they were in high school. So that's the important piece here too. We've got to keep our educational standards up. We have high standards at Bryant, high expectations, and no matter how we're learning, we've got to keep those standards up.
I could not agree more. Coming from that field of education, we have to have the high standards to be able to compete in the local, state, national, and world economy, because people may not realize it, but our students actually travel all over the world and learn. I've had some of my former students that have pursued advanced degrees in England and a variety of places. Plus, they're working all over the world, which is phenomenal. Some of my former students have gone to Japan and worked, which is really cool. Miss Ramsey has stated that she likes the pay-per-view option for Salt Bowl versus not having it at all. And of course, I'm in agreement with that as well. So if we do it, we'll just have to have a lot of watch parties if we have to do it that way. And it'll be well worth it just to watch Bryant beat Benton again, you know, so.
So Mayor, if I can do one shout out that is non-COVID related,
Absolutely.
talking about trying to get back to as much normal as we can. We recently received our AP scores from this last spring. Students took their AP test a little differently. They took them from home, but they still took those tests. And our kids, our AP scores, meaning the kids that scored a 3 or higher, we had the highest scores than we've had in 5 years. We had over 60% of our students that scored the 3 or higher. So I wanted to give that shout out.
Yes, absolutely, which is really phenomenal, honestly. And some people might not realize what that means is for most students that take AP classes, when they take that AP test, that determines whether or not they can get college credit for that AP test. And if you get a 3 or higher, you can get college credit depending on which university you go to. I know my son was able to get college credit by taking AP exams. And if you get high enough on some of those AP tests, I believe in not even just one class, you might even be able to get credit for 2 classes and stuff. So it's actually a big savings for the parents of their students going to school if they do well on those AP exams. I mean, my son had a semester of school going into college when he started college. So that was great. So yeah, that is phenomenal. And I'm so glad to hear that.
Yes.
Smart kids.
Yes, we do. And great teachers.
Yes, great dedicated teachers that are, and admitted they're all under stress, just as you are, just as I am. But they're doing so well, as always. The Bryant teachers and teachers pretty much across the nation, I think, rise to the occasion that they need to. Sometimes it's a thankless job, but again, thanks to everybody that is in education, because without it, we wouldn't be where we are. As my grandma used to tell me, she always told me, said, hey, get your education, because once you learn it, they can't take it away from you, So there you go. I don't see anything else. A couple of people said that's awesome and appreciate all the work educators are doing. Miss Ramsey did, and Patrice Muldrow goes, that's awesome. Brian Moorhead goes, amen. It is 9:47. We've been at this about 45, 50 minutes, which is a pretty good time. And I appreciate the time you gave us this morning, Dr. Walters. I think right now we'll just go ahead and I'll start wrapping this up and tell everybody that, we're going to continue on. As I mentioned earlier, if you were online and you heard it, that's fine. If you aren't, I'm working from home today, or actually for the next 10 to 14 days, depending on how things work out, because my wife and children have this week tested positive for COVID. I have taken the test, but I have not gotten my results back. So we're quarantining in accordance with the guidelines set forth by the CDC, the Arkansas Department of Health, my job, my wife's job. We're just working through this process. It is, for the most part, luckily, everybody in the family is doing pretty well with this. It's kind of wild, but my wife and son, and even myself, I've mentioned this before we got online, have actually lost our sense of smell, which is kind of weird. I told Dr. Walters right before we went live that I actually, yesterday and this morning, I opened up a jar, a can, or actually it's a jar of vanilla, and stuck it up to my nose to smell it, and I couldn't smell a thing, which is the weirdest thing of all. So anyway, so there's that. The city's in good hands, though. My people are on the job. I'm on the job through all the wonderful technology we have. I was thinking about that this morning. the fact that we have all this technology in this situation, that this pandemic occurred right now, it's probably advantageous that we have this technology, because otherwise I think everything would come to such a screeching halt that it would be much worse than what it is. Because either you'd have to go to work sick and spread this worse, or you would not be able to work at all, which would be bad. So at least, you can potentially work from home and do things online and stuff like that. I'm constantly on phone calls and meetings with people. So my day is not much any different from going to the office at my office as to going to the spare bedroom in my house to do this. So I appreciate all you do and all the educators do. And with that, I think we're done. And I will say, see y'all later. Go shop the farmer's market if you can and get some good vegetables. I got some good watermelon the other day. So
Thank you for having me, and we'll be praying for you and your family. Hope everyone is back to 100% very soon. And I
too.
appreciate the partnership that the city has with the school district. We appreciate everything that y'all do for us, and we continue to look forward to a strong future.
Oh, absolutely. We'll get there. I think somebody's decided to come visit me. My dog decided to come in. So with that note, I guess he wants to go outside and use the bathroom. So I will sign off and say thank you again, Dr. Walters, and thank you everybody that joined in to watch, and tune in next month for the next Coffee with the Mayor. We'll see who we got, and hopefully I'll have my my assistant Dana helping me, so it'll be a little bit easier, but I think it went off pretty simple today. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and sign off and say, see y'all later. Take care, Dr. Walters.
You too.